Speaking of brilliant, well, I feel like she's popping right out of my television this weekend. um, Barbara McQuade, MSNBC legal analyst, former U.S. attorney, and my legal lady. Hi, Barb. How are you?
Hi, Stephanie. I am well. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, wow. I was saying, there you were, probably sitting on set to talk about the Supreme Court nomination, and this tax story drops. And now I haven't had a chance. I know your friend and mine, Joyce Vance said, tax avoidance is typically a federal crime. Failure to pay can be a misdemeanor, but lying about your income taxes on forms you sign is a felony. So, can you explain that to us? What you read in the New York Times in terms of what it is legally?
Yes. So I don't know that they've proven any crime, but they've highlighted a lot of highly unusual facts in there. One of which is that President Trump has paid between $0 and $750 in taxes for the past several years, while I think most Americans pay a lot more in taxes than that. All this while bringing in many millions of dollars. But he's also losing a lot of money, is part of the story there. He's had some unusual treatments of his taxes, including paying consulting fees to his daughter, Ivanka Trump. So a lot of irregularities there. But I think the point that Joyce is talking about is tax fraud, and that would mean deliberately cheating on your taxes. The way to prove that, Stephanie, is to gather other documents. And it seems to me that this is precisely what Manhattan District Attorney Cy Vance is likely working on. What you really need are a combination of the tax returns and a person's bank records, because when you compare those things, you can find discrepancies. If they're, as Michael Cohen testified before Congress, underreporting income for purposes of taxes to lower the tax bill, and then inflating revenues to qualify for loans, those could both be lies. And so the question is, are you lying in either place? And if so, where? If it's on the bank records, it could be bank fraud. If it's on tax records, it could be tax fraud, both of which are felonies and very serious ones.
And it sounds like he was also talking about insurance fraud, wire fraud. I mean, I saw somebody say that financial crimes, in some ways, are the easiest to prosecute because it's documents. So, tell us what documents were missing and what the chances are of getting them. What you sort of already referred to.
You're absolutely right. When you prosecute a case involving witnesses, witnesses can fail you in many ways. Their memories can fail. They can be cross-examined and demonstrate biases that juries can find make them less credible. But with documents, documents don't lie. Documents don't wither on the witness stand. Documents are there, and when people sign them and attest to their accuracy, they testify for themselves. And so, for that reason, documentary cases can be very powerful. It seems to me that could be one of the reasons President Trump has fought so hard to prevent the disclosure of his documents, his tax returns, and his bank records. He's been fighting these cases against not only Congress, but the Manhattan District Attorney. He fought it all the way to the Supreme Court, lost, and then when it was remanded, has begun his fight again, arguing new legal challenges to these requests for documents. So I'm confident the day will come when he runs out of legal arguments and the courts have enough of his arguments, and they all get turned over. But one question that Cyrus Vance has raised is that the statute of limitations is ticking away on these things. And so the stall tactics that President Trump uses are probably his best shot at victory.
As I said to you last time, I apologize. I know you've dedicated your life to it, but the law is stupid. Now, Barb.
Well, for sure, in some areas, I agree with you, Stephanie.
But I mean, I don't want to get all giddy here, Barb, but I mean, the state, the Cy Vance and the state of New York is under no such DOJ rule that a sitting president can't be indicted. Could he be indicted? And if so, when? Before the election? How soon are, like, where are we time-wise on getting all the documents he needs?
Well, he still doesn't have the documents, so I doubt it's going to happen before the election.
Oh.
But I think that it could happen at some point. That most recently, there was an argument in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals that seemed to be having none of Trump's arguments, and so we await their ruling. So I think ultimately we'll get an order to turn them over. We'll see whether President Trump complies with that order, I suppose, but he would risk being held in contempt if he failed. But I think the day will come. And yes, you're right, Stephanie, that although the Department of Justice has a policy that a sitting president not be charged. That would not be binding on any state court prosecutor. The Office of Legal Counsel, that is the Department of Justice's um, legal policymaker, decision maker, has said that it's their view that a sitting president cannot be charged with a crime consistent with the Constitution. But of course, there's no law that prohibits that. The Supreme Court has never ruled on such a thing. And so, although DOJ policy is that no federal prosecutor will ever charge a sitting president until they get a different answer on that, there is nothing that precludes Cy Vance from doing that. And so, I would imagine that if he is able to put together the case that he is pursuing, if the evidence supports it, you could see a sitting president charged. Now, it may be that charges don't come until after January of 2021, and it could be by then that President Trump is out of office. But I imagine that, when you're a prosecutor, you move as quickly as you can, because every day that goes by, your case gets a little bit weaker as memories fade and evidence disappears.
So we have obviously Richard Neal, head of the Tax Ways and Means Committee. I mean, a lot of people obviously are. I mean, I don't know where these came from, but a lot of people are seeking these records, right? I mean, there's obviously a congressional track. There's the Cy Vance track. What's just your general summation of all that? What's going to happen? Does this affect what happens with Congress?
Yes, I don't know that the tax returns do, although maybe it makes their argument a little more compelling. There's three different committees who all want his tax returns for different reasons, one of which I think is very pertinent, and that is whether the current financial disclosure requirements for a president are adequate. And they wanted to see President Trump's financial records to see, are there questions we're not asking on our forms? And so I would imagine that seeing these highly irregular tax forms makes their argument all the more compelling about why they need to see President Trump's financial records so that they can make that decision. Congress is there to legislate and to see if laws should be improved. Others relate to the Russia investigation and international money laundering. And so I don't know that this is any more pertinent for those investigations, but I think it's squarely within the investigation of the committee that's looking into government ethics.
Well,
and so I think one more argument for them.
Yeah, and Barb, Chairman Schiff was just on the show Friday. I would think the Intelligence Committee, I think the main thing, at least to me, the biggest thing this proves is that he's a national security threat, that he owes over $400 million. It shows that he's paid foreign governments, that he's continued business during his presidency. I mean, doesn't this make you even more furious about the Mueller investigation and, Rosenstein or whoever's stopping the look into following the money into his financial entanglements, that there was no counterintelligence investigation done, that everything we've learned about all that?
Yes, I think this really highlights it. The first part you said about he owes something like $421 million in debt that is coming due soon. These are the kinds of issues that would be a real red flag for any other person seeking a security clearance. And not only is he in debt, he is in debt to foreign creditors. And so those are people who could hold leverage over him. And of course, he is the person who has access to our nation's most sensitive secrets. There's also some indication there that he has obtained favorable licensing deals with the government of Turkey. Again, there could be some compromise there in an effort to curry favor with them, agreeing to policy things. It's the reason that presidents of wealth should put all of these assets in a blind trust so that there is no control over their own assets while they're making policy. And as you said, with regard to the Mueller investigation, we learned only later that Rod Rosenstein had prevented them from looking into President Trump's finances, which I find just absurd. Yeah. They said that was a red line they could not cross. In any kind of white-collar investigation, one of the very first things you do is look into someone's finances, because it is so revealing to find out. I mean, so many crimes are motivated by money. Yeah. To see, and if not, they are at least explained by money. The movement of money, who's giving you money, who you owe money to. All of those things are so pertinent to understanding people's motivations for things. And so the idea that they weren't able to look at his finances explains an awful lot about why they were unable to connect the dots.
Yeah. And Barb, do you think this changes? I mean, Nancy Pelosi brought up impeachment as one of the arrows in her quiver. I know Joy Reid said, do you think this changes the calculus in terms of, first of all, stopping this illegitimate Supreme Court pick, which is going to, affect, our, as you've written so eloquently and talked about on Twitter, for 40 years. And I just feel like with everything we've just learned, is that not another reason to begin another impeachment and stop this Supreme Court nomination? But also because he deserves it, because this is yet another. There's a million grounds for his impeachment and Bill Barr's, isn't there?
Yes, I think as a practical matter, you could make the argument that this is yet again President Trump lying to the American people. I mean, he has said that the reason he can't produce his tax returns is because he's under audit. And while in fact he is under audit for an unexplained $72 million treatment in return, there's nothing that prevents someone under audit from disclosing their tax returns. And so he has carried that lie for 4 years. Now, as a practical matter, is it likely that the Senate will convict him? Probably not. And so I guess Nancy Pelosi has to think strategically about how best to use her political capital in this moment with an election upon us. But you're right, elections have consequences, and we've seen a very significant consequence now in President Trump being able to name his third Supreme Court justice, swinging the direction of the court for the next generations.
Yeah. Well, plus, you also tweeted Pennsylvania U.S. Attorney's highly unusual letter to County Election Bureau violates DOJ policies, smacks of improper partisan politics. Barb, do you wake up in the same cold sweat that the rest of us do? That they are clearly telegraphing that this is going to go to the Supreme Court and this is why they have to install another crony on the Supreme Court, and that before anyone's even voted, and Joe Biden's up 10 points. I mean, they're already saying, we're going to sue to say this election is invalid no matter what.
Yeah, I am very worried about the election because this time, there was evidence of election interference in 2016, and this time President Trump is on the inside and controls the levers of government. He himself has said one of the reasons he needs to have a ninth justice is so that they can resolve election issues. So he's clearly anticipating that. We've had William Barr echoing his talking points about the unreliability of voting by mail. All of that seems designed to delegitimize our democracy. And that is what Russia tries to do. To see the leaders in our own government trying to undermine public confidence in our elections is deeply disturbing. I worry about an October surprise from William Barr about his investigation into the origins of the Russia election. Now, although there's been some reporting this weekend saying that that's not going to happen.
Yeah, because they've got nothing. Because they've got nothing, and they want to just be able to say, "Oh, it's still under investigation. He's under investigation." That's all they wanted the Ukraine to do, right? Is just imply that he's under investigation.
Yeah, you're right about that. All you need is the talking point, right? Same with this thing in Pennsylvania, where they announced, contrary to DOJ policy, that they found these discarded ballots that turns out was an error. That there's no conspiracy, no fraud going on there, but an error, and they should look into it. There should be an investigation. But why on earth would you publicly talk about the investigation at these early stages? It just talked about going in and conducting interviews and other kinds of things. That's just not what the Department of Justice does.
Stinks to high heaven. And also it's like there's only 7 votes for Trump. You're like, it sounds like it's part of this voter suppression envelope crap that they're trying to do in Pennsylvania. And it's just, I know, it is really terrifying. I loved your tribute to RBG on Twitter. You said, for women and girls, for minorities of all types, for those of us who've ever had someone make us feel less than, RBG was an inspiration to be a fierce advocate for equality. And we just, she fought 87 years for us. We got to keep fighting for her, right? That's all we can do. Let's double and triple down, right, at the ballot box.
Yes, and she fought for the equality that she fought for during times when it was not clear that she was going to win, when it looked like the deck was stacked against her, when she was making these arguments in the 1970s for gender equality. She was met with derision and amusement, and she was steadfast. She continued her work and ultimately got the law changed and got the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause to apply to gender discrimination. And then on the court, she often was in dissent. And she said, the reason I write my dissents and deliver my dissents is I'm speaking to the intellect of a future day. And so she saw, she played the long game and she continued to fight. And I think in that spirit, we all need to do the same. And we've got a very urgent fight on our hands that we don't have to play the long game right now. It's just another 6 weeks away.
Yeah.
But it's time to bring out all the stops.
And you fight that fight every day,
Yes.
like in the mold of RBG, the fierce legal warrior woman, even though the law is stupid. You still do it every day, and God bless you. Thanks for taking time for us, Barb.
Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate the conversation.
Okay, see you soon.